Well, we'll get started, Mark, I think.
Okay.
So the Zoom master here is Mark Quam. Thank you, Mark. So welcome, everybody. It was a year ago in March that we did our last legislative day, and it was done in person at the state capitol. This year, we have moved it up by a month. We're a little bit earlier, and our goal is to educate, to communicate, to coordinate. So all of us are together, 5 big associations. A big thank you to all 5 associations for helping. We have 3 sessions for today. For this first session, we have comments by Senator Petrowski and Representative Constantine. You have that in your agenda. And then little updates on each of the 5 sponsoring associations. We have a break, and then we have 3 people from the Department of Transportation for the second session with Diana Moss, Aran Rao, and Ian Ritz will give us updates. And then the award session, I think most of you are aware now that DOT Secretary Craig Thompson and others will be joining in for the 5 awards that our 5 groups are presenting to people and saying thank you. So our goals today are to, as we say, advocate for our issues, and certainly to educate each other and to learn how to work together to the benefit of each of our mission statements.
My duty this morning, this afternoon, is to introduce Jerry Petrowski. 1999, Jerry began his life of public service for the state of Wisconsin. Currently, he's the chair of the Senate Transportation and Veterans Affairs Committee, the vice chair of the Senate Economic Development and Local Government Committee, a member of the Senate Agriculture, Small Business, and Tourism Committee, and also a member of the Senate Financial Institutions Committee. He's also served in the United States Army Reserve. He's a machinist. He's a small business owner. He's a gentleman farmer of ginseng, beef, and dairy cattle. In working with Jerry, I found he's eminently solutional. He's works for all of Wisconsin to promote coalition building and alternative approaches to problems. Jerry is an excellent example of being a citizen legislator. He's on the Rustic Roads Board, Scenic Byways Advisory Committee, Educational Opportunity Board for Military Children. He serves on the advisory board of the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point College of Natural Resources. He's a father of 4 and a grandfather of 3. I've known Jerry for a number of years, and his leadership and counsel have always been very valuable. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce not only my friend, but a friend of all of Wisconsin, Senator Jerry Petrowski.
Thank you, Andy. I had a little trouble getting on. Somehow I think my staff omitted one number, but we're in good shape now, so we have a green light. Thank you for the kind words, Andy. I really would like to start off by thanking everybody that's in the Skype meeting today. We live in strange times. I don't think anybody will ever forget this last year with COVID and all the things that so many of the citizens of Wisconsin went through. And it's kind of, heartbreaking to see the number of small businesses that we might lose, the number of people that have lost their jobs. But the one thing that I think is really important, you've seen a lot of people that were able to pull together, try to put their own personal things aside to try to bring people together, come up with ideas to solve problems. The committee that so many of you are on, dealing with best practices and how you deal with the public at a time of the spread of COVID. And I want to thank you for all you do, not only for all the things that you have done during this time, this emergency, but also for the job you do in moving people around our state, helping people get to their destinations. Transportation, in my opinion, is one of the most important things we have going. And it's so tremendously important to our economy and our future. Not only our future, but the future of our children and the future people that are going to be living in this great state of Wisconsin. I, of course, chair transportation. I chair local government. And those are issues not only that are dear to my heart, but they're issues that I really care about. And, you know, I think the thing to really keep in mind is that we're going to get through this. And it's going to be that much easier if we can find a way to find solutions and that we can all pull together for that common goal. And I think we're going to see some bumps in the road. You know, I don't think we're going to get back to normal anytime real soon, but at least the experts now are saying, you know, by the second quarter of this year, they believe that things are going to get better. When the COVID gets better, I think the economy is going to pick up, and we could be in for some real good times by the end of the year. And that's my hope, and I'm sure it's yours too. This has been a trying time for so many of us, and you can imagine. I know how you feel. You don't like to wear the mask, and neither do I. Personally, I wear it for my wife. I wear it for my grandchildren. I wear it for others because I don't want to be a part of spreading any kind of virus that creates such devastation in families. And, you know, the technology is great when it works, the Skype meetings and that. It's a new way of doing business. But I think it's something that will help us get past this. I wanted to talk a little bit about solutions and legislation, but I think I'll start off with the budget. Many of us in the legislature were concerned because, you know, 6 months ago, a lot of the states in the Midwest were looking at huge shortfalls in revenue coming in, whether it's transportation or whether it's in any part of the spectrum across the whole budget. And, you know, many of us were concerned how Wisconsin was going to handle this and survive through this all. And I will give some credit to the federal government because the dollars to compensate, to fill in the backfill, the places we were short, I think has really been helpful. And it will pay dividends down the road as we move forward. To me, you know, I deal with a lot of issues. I deal with a lot of legislation. But it's usually trying to find solutions to problems and to try to move people to the same place. I don't think that's always easy, but I think all of you understand that you can have the best ideas in the world, but that doesn't mean that they're going to become law. And so I would encourage you, all of you, to work together, to work with your legislators, to find that goal, that solution to the problems that we face. A lot of our things are tied to revenue. There's no doubt about it. Money solves a lot of problems for us. And as we look forward, I think the fact that we can have a dialogue, we can talk, you know, all the things that all of you do, from rail safety to the cabs that go across our cities, to helping the elderly get to doctor's appointments, all of that is so important. And all of you understand, too, that our state isn't one size fits all. We have a lot of different things going on in many parts. I hear from people all over the North Woods that have a hard time finding ambulance service and everything else. But I know that by pulling together, we can find some answers that will make a difference in the lives of a lot of people. I want to thank you for inviting me here today to do the welcome. So welcome to Madison by Skype. I hope you enjoy the day. Some people call it a day on the hill. I know this is one of those things where, whether it's virtual or Skype or whatever you want to call it, I look forward to seeing so many of you in the Capitol again. And let us hope for a better year this year than we had last year. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your day, and thanks to your staff for helping to set this up. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next, we have a face that it will be new to some of you, but a gentleman, State Representative Dave Considine, who is emerging as a leader in the transportation area. He is the ranking member of the Assembly Transportation Committee, and we have asked a distinguished town chairman, Ashley Netto Owen, who is a constituent of Representative Considine to do the introductions. I am so happy. Some of us spent a day with Representative Considine. He is ready to go. He is enthusiastic. He understands the connections in transit, rural transit, human service vehicles, all of it. And with that, Ashley, I'll let you say a few words about yourself, your distinguished role, and then Representative Considine will welcome us and has a few comments.
Thank you, Gary, for that hyperbolic introduction. I am fortunate to serve as town chair in West Point, which is part of the 81st Assembly District. And I'm very, very fortunate to have Representative Considine as my assemblyman. He has worked very hard for us through some pretty trying times. We experienced catastrophic flooding in West Point in 2019. And through a number of hearings and all of the follow-up stuff, both Representative Considine and his staff have been instrumental in helping us move forward with that. But that's, for me, part of being a good legislator. And we know that Representative Considine is one. He just a couple of weeks ago won Legislator of the Year award from the Wisconsin
Right.
Justly deserved. I know, visiting with some of the dairy farmers who are my neighbors, Gordon Carncross has nothing but praise. And I think the largest Considine sign I've ever seen in his front yard. You can barely even see Gordon's house behind the sign. But one of the things that for me is important about a legislator who serves on a transportation committee in any form is an understanding of those systems. And as Gary has pointed out, Representative Considine does have that understanding. More than that, he has experience. He's used Madison Metro, he's taken the bus, he's taken trains. In fact, he had the good fortune of taking an Amtrak in 1993 with his spouse, went down to New Orleans. I don't know if y'all remember, but 93 saw some incredible flooding on the Missouri River, Mississippi River. Part of that flooding forced the Considines to abandon the train. They were protecting a bridge. They were afraid the overloaded train might damage the bridge, and got to spend a couple hours in the middle of the night on buses to reconnect with the train at a later date. So I think we are most fortunate in transit to have Representative Considine working for us. With that, take it away, Dave Considine.
Thank you, Ashley, and welcome all of you. It is good to see your faces. I wish we were meeting in person and talking. It has been one of my privileges as a representative to, when lobbyists or visitors come in, quote unquote, sometimes I feel like I rip my staff off, because where most offices it may be 75-25 where the persons see a legislator. In my office, it's the reverse of that, if not more. They get to see me, because I just really enjoy talking to people and listening to what their concerns are about state government, about what we can do. And I bring that same motto to the ranking member on transportation. For those of you who don't know, and some of you may not, ranking member means that I am the Democratic member if we're in the minority, probably would be chair if we were in the majority, and kind of speak for the Democrats about transportation. My goal as a ranking member is to amplify the voices of my committee members and not necessarily be the spokesperson unless they want me to. I don't care. But it's important that everybody's voice gets heard. Actually, probably the most significant thing I could say about rail transportation especially is that my father-in-law was a union railroader for 40 years, retired a little early. And when I married into his family, I was this ultra-conservative Goldwater supporter. Which I find really interesting. We got along great. It's not like nowadays. We got along great. There wasn't a problem. We loved each other. We worked fine. We could have discussions about anything. But when he passed away was the year I was first running for office, 6.5 years ago. And the last words that he said coherently, because I was there, and he was just tickled that this ultra-conservative Republican was running as a Democrat union leader for the assembly. And his last words, really, his last coherent words were, "How's the campaign going, Dave?"
Oh,
Because he didn't get to see me win, but I hold that near and dear. I have spent a lot of time on DOT study committees in the past 2 years. I have been on the non-driver's license and how we serve a transportation system, how we serve non-drivers. And I think I recognize some of your faces from that study group. I think that's been really good. I also serve on a committee with the, you can call them autonomous cars, the driverless cars, the self-driving cars. I think Wisconsin is a little behind on that issue, and we need to be addressing it and get some things done. So I'm really looking forward to tackling that. My main reason for wanting to be on transportation really had to do with roads and farmers. I was a full-time farmer. I still live on the farm, manage it. It's all in native prairie and wildflowers now in the Conservation Reserve Program because it's in the Baraboo Bluffs. But really concerned about helping farmers and knowing that the roads are just as fundamental to them, and the railroads and the transportation industry is just as fundamental to them as it is for every other resident of the state of Wisconsin. So I bring that rural voice and concern. I'm really grateful that some of my members are from Milwaukee on the Transportation Committee. They are real go-getters, and they've served on a number of committees. One of them is on the Milwaukee Common Council. She just sent me, I think it was 20 emails about proposals to do some regulation of things. And I hope to help her with that, because that is not my expertise. It is why I listen to others and try to amplify their voice. This has been a tough year, like Senator Petrowski said, and he's right. It was wonderful watching communities pull together during this time of COVID. The same thing was true in 19 when I had flooding not only in Ashley's town, but in the Meso area in my district. In the Baraboo area, really the Baraboo River was what was flooding into the Wisconsin River, and it ran through the whole district from top to bottom. But watching communities come together, stay together, support each other has been just great. It makes me proud to represent these people. This is not going to be an easy year. I see the governor, I was surprised, didn't raise any fees in his proposal for the budget, and instead talked about borrowing. I was surprised, but I understand not wanting to take a whole lot more money perhaps out of people's pockets, and there just wasn't a way to do everything. I know that it would drain down our emergency funds, and I am really grateful as a fiscal conservative that we have those emergency funds. But if there was a time to drain our emergency funds, I think it's to get out of this pandemic and to restore the things that we need to get done. So I don't know what we as a legislature are going to come up with. My suspicion is we're going to be drafting, from what I hear my colleagues across the aisle saying, that we're going to be drafting a budget from scratch, the Joint Finance Committee, as they've done the past. This will be the third time, and not necessarily taking the governor's budget. But that makes it especially important that you are in the ears of your legislators and in my ear, telling me what you need in this budget so I can forward that both to my senator, who's on the Joint Finance Committee, but also to my two representatives on the Joint Finance Committee. So it's really important. I'm available. Please contact my office, whether you live in my district or not. I want to advocate for you. And as you can see, I think the DOT told me that I'm getting to be a familiar face there as I've been serving on all these study committees. So I think I have a good relationship with them, and I hope to continue that and advocate for the things that you need. Thanks a lot, and it'll be a great.
thank you, David. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. To the two legislators, I think it's so important to hear directly from them. And Representative Constantine, thank you very much for being with us. There are several providers, private providers on this call, that provide service in your district, and they appreciate it very, very much. So the purpose of the next section of this session is to hear the mission statement of the 5 organizations. And I described them this way to one of the reporters from Associated Press contacted me about this meeting today. And I described them, so we are the swath of services that fit between a road builder and a fixed route bus system, right? So we don't do construction, and we don't do a system like a Madison Metro, which is a fixed route bus, but we cover everything in between in terms of public transportation. There is one anomaly to that, and that is an $83 million program, which is transportation related, that is in the Department of Health Services, relating to a non-emergency medical transportation broker. Otherwise, everything else is coordinated through DOT. So we are going to hear from the 5 association presidents. And since Jim Brown was the first person to send in his 1-pager, we will do that. And Mark is going to send you copies of these, and they're going to put on the screen the 1-pager, and then each president is going to just go through their priorities, and then we'll take questions and answers. So first up, we've got Jim Brown.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you to everybody for joining in today. Appreciate it. My name is Jim Brown. I'm the president of the SMVAW Association, and I operate in Wisconsin Rapids, an NEMT company, and also a shared ride public transit program. And today we speak about the Specialized Medical Vehicle Association of Wisconsin, which, if you're not familiar with the program or what we do, has been, as I read on here, you'll see we've been struggling, not as an organization, but as a program. And as you can see there, it is our mission to provide education and assistance to other members, to work with local and state officials to provide a better service for our vulnerable citizens, and to assist these individuals, which would be the nursing home residents. The program itself was initiated by the Department of Health Services for nursing home residents in need of transportation, something they would otherwise have difficulty accessing. And since we've been, and Gary, I don't know if you're still there, but is it 25
Yes.
years? The association?
Yeah, this is the 21st year.
21st, okay. And I've been doing it for about 20 years. Unfortunately, as you can see here, what began as a wonderful program has run into some problems. Since 1992, there was over 300 providers of this service. We are now around less than 90 registered providers, many of them registered for numerous reasons, but not providing service. The main reason being, since 1992, we have not seen a rate increase at all. The other concern I have is other programs the department has created. We've seen family cares, the IRIS program, MTM operating the management program. And all these combined have created basically a competition between not only themselves, but with the nursing home program. And in the end, since the other programs allow you to contract with them and get better rates, business is business, and that's what's happening. We're seeing the providers doing what they have to do best for their business, and that's stay alive. And so the ones suffering are the nursing home residents. Some of the other obstacles we've run into are because of the auditors of the program. Mileage inconsistencies. Do you use odometer? Do you use a mapping program? There's a document called Certification of Need, which is the responsibility of the family member to have filled out for the department, but we know that that never happens. So it becomes a responsibility of the provider to make sure that the the doctor of that member has his form completed and on file. We see verification forms, and if you've ever seen one lately, I counted it yesterday, there are 45 separate entries that must be entered on a document to do a complete trip for the department, plus the 4 spaces left for signatures and dates and other things for the facility. Another concern we have is the level of care form. This is when someone goes into the nursing home must provide some paperwork to the department that this member has gone from, say they were at home under the MTM program, now they're in a nursing home. And until that is furnished, it is difficult for them to get service under the program that we provide now. And what we're saying is if a doctor basically is prescribing a nursing home service for the resident, then they in fact need it, and should the level of care form be necessary for us to provide service to that member. So these are all things that are affecting our service. We're seeing a decline in a number of providers. And as mentioned earlier, up north, especially the urban areas, the rural areas are seeing a very, very hard hit. On a final note, I guess I look at it this way, is it is now easier for a young, say 20-year-old, somebody going through drug treatment, which is wonderful for them, but is easier for them to access service than your mother, father, or brother, sister, or your grandparent in a nursing home, who just as desperately needs treatment for their medical conditions. So I'm hoping we continue our goals. We continue to work to raise rates, to have a better auditing system, to work with other agencies and other providers and other associations for the betterment of transportation. But we're hoping that we can get a closer look at this program. What do we want to do in the near future for those living in the nursing homes, for our elderly, for our most needy? And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. It is 21 years that it started. Our very first speaker was former State Senator Mark Miller. And so we've had 10 years with a broker, 10 years without a broker earlier. So it's been a very interesting time. Next, Nona Hill. Nona is president of All Aboard Wisconsin. The sidekick with her is her husband, the infamous Clark Johnson. And so they are doing this as a duo presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I should say it's afternoon. It's morning for us. I'm 4 hours earlier than you are. All Aboard Wisconsin began as a coalition of interested groups that include passenger rail advocacy, like the Wisconsin Association of Railroad Passengers, which we know as WisARP, ProRail, which is the Madison chapter of that group, and others. Environmental groups, such as the Environmental Law and Policy Center and the Sierra Club, other public transportation advocates, bus, taxi, and bike advocates, as well as individual members. And we formed when we thought we were going to get Madison service paid for by the federal government, and then we got a new governor who made sure that we didn't get that. So that was the impetus for forming the group originally. We believe that by lobbying our elected officials, our efforts may lead to changes that will benefit more people beyond our membership and well into the future. We encourage our members and friends to support the investment of public funds in sound transportation infrastructure and policy that will lead to more balanced transportation options that will carry more people to more places. Our advocacy includes elected officials, mayors and city managers, chambers of commerce and business groups. We believe in supporting the freight railroads because they are the backbone of the passenger rail system, Amtrak, and other transportation services. All Aboard Wisconsin spends much of its time on education. That is the main thrust of our outreach efforts. We deliver Badger Rails, which is a publication of the Wisconsin Association of Railroad Passengers, to the state capitol for distribution to the entire legislature and support events like today's Zoom call. All Aboard Wisconsin believes that more and better passenger rail is the future. Passenger rail is a popular and proven way for people to travel safely and quickly in a comfortable environment. It addresses the transportation issues of many smaller communities across our state and many other states that are not served or woefully underserved by any other public transit mode. It is environmentally friendly and can help reduce the impact of travel on our air quality and use of fossil fuel. Investment in rail infrastructure has been an enormous economic driver in communities who have made the commitment to its use. And for an example of that, I always refer to some statistics that I heard from Amtrak that are about 3 or 4 years old at this point. Illinois at the time was spending $40 million to support its passenger rail, state-supported Amtrak trains. And they were getting back $200 million in direct economic benefit. So that's the kind of economic benefit that you could expect from supporting passenger rail. Making that investment now is important because any delay simply means that the price will be higher later. So I thank everyone for their attention.
Thank you, Nona. Nona sends a few of us beautiful pictures of orchids, and I have been describing my driveway as looking more like Nome, Alaska, the last 12, 15 days here in Wisconsin. So thank you. You look great and appreciate it working out. Next, Mark Jones, you'll be on the hot seat, and then followed by Holly, and then followed by Carl. Mark Jones is the president of the oldest taxicab association in North America. I see CJ is on the call, and Bill Carter, thank you. There are several. Carl, of course, is with Green Cab. There are several of our shared ride operators. Paul, of course, is on the call, so thank you, everybody. Mark is quite active in both the shared ride and the SMV aspects of it. You'll find that many providers do more than one thing in order to make it through these tough times. So I'll turn it over to Mark. Mark, thank you. I'm glad all is well with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me today and putting this day together for all of us to help us take the opportunity to be able to just highlight our concerns, the things that are going well, and things that we can look at. So yes, so just for those of you who aren't familiar with me, I'm the owner president of Abby Vans, and this is our 33rd year of business as Abby Vans, president and owner, and we're very pleased with the opportunity to provide services we do in so many of our local communities, but honored here today to represent WATO as president for WATO, which is, again, as Gary, as you mentioned, is the oldest taxi cab association in the United States. So we're very, very proud of that, and we hope that we can continue to make an effort. So over the years, WATO has focused on improving the industry, raising the public awareness, and the importance that a healthy transit network is to the economic welfare of our communities here in Wisconsin. This past year has highlighted and shown more than ever before the importance that it is to have good, affordable, and safe transit options in Wisconsin. Just think about the number of people who wouldn't have access to get the necessary care they needed this last year, access to vaccines, access to goods and services, delivery programs, whether it's the Meals on Wheels or other help for many of our elders. My mom has been homebound basically since March of last year, and as of tomorrow, she will have been past her 1 week notice of her second shot, and she is so much looking forward to coming out of quarantine and being able to get together with family and go shopping. She said she's going to go shopping in the store for the first time in 11 months tomorrow, or excuse me, on Friday, which she so much is looking forward to. So, but back to WATO, again, the importance that we have. We believe that the association can provide a platform for members and the communities we serve to be able to go ahead and do a lot of different things. One, identify challenges we have, also to be able to identify best practices. And we're thankful for the time that we're able to get together and have those open conversations with all forms of transportation service types. And in this organization, we represent the private market as well as the public sector through the federal and state funding program of the 5311 system. So we're happy with that. Over the years, we've prided ourselves in the ability of being able to educate and communicate with legislatures, especially when it deals with new policy. And we've advocated strongly a number of times over the years on policy that while at first looks good, sometimes doesn't always have a positive effect on all the different levels of transportation. And our effort is to maintain all of the services we have available currently and to improve the opportunity for services to grow and to continue to provide more transit options for all of Wisconsin constituents. There are some challenges that we've faced here over the last few years on the public side. Unfortunately, the funding has not kept pace with the growth, and we've had many new communities that have either expanded services and or created services in the last 10 to 15 years. And unfortunately, the state funding has not kept up with that. So local communities that have been in service maybe longer than others, who have based their local share and their public contribution to the programs in these 47 communities in the state of Wisconsin that based their budget based on a certain percentage of state and federal funding, those funds have cut as much as 10 to 12%. At the same time, the cost of services has also gone up. So the share is reduced and the cost of services has increased 2 to 4% over the last 10 to 15 years. Just the cost of operating, labor, fuel, insurance, equipment, all of those things cost money. And so we've seen increases and then percentage decreases at the same time. And it's to the point where some of these local communities we know are looking at trying to reduce services and even eliminate services. And so we just continue to know that we need to work with our legislature to highlight that and bring that to their attention. Again, one of the cost issues we've looked at is the cost of insurance. That continues to seem to climb. We bridged the gap a couple of times through the poverty summit that was, I had the opportunity with Gary to participate last year, and just addressing some of the driving factors that are causing insurance to increase, and anything that we can do with communities, with the association, and with our legislature to try to contain and lower those costs. We're very excited to be able to be a part of that. And finally, we just want to just make sure that everyone understands that WATO really has a goal toward making our industry healthier. Promotion of good communication, policy, and containment of costs are things that will help our industry. And we just are glad to be a part of today, and hope that we can work with everyone on this call, as well as with all of our legislature over this next year to help us with some of these things that we've identified. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I see next we have Holly. I have been to Washington, D.C. with Holly. She is president of WAMM, which stands for the Wisconsin Association of Mobility Managers. They are a clever, wonderful group of people. Holly was one of the best lobbyists that I worked with in Washington, D.C. She just had a wonderful style and got directly in people's faces, which you have to do sometime, right, CJ? You got to go after them and make them listen. So Holly, thank you on behalf of everybody. Thank you for being here, and you can share the state priorities with us. And welcome.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Gary. I'm here, as Gary stated, I actually work for Lutheran Social Services and manage a mobility management project in 3 and actually 4 counties now in northeastern Wisconsin in the Fox cities. And I've been doing this for about 15 years, but the Wisconsin Association of Mobility Managers was created in around 2010-ish, 11-ish. And all of us, and there's several other mobility managers on this phone call, so I hope they have anything additional to say that they will. But all of us throughout the state, there's different projects all around the state. Some of us are in nonprofit environments like myself. There's people that represent counties, transit agencies, Southwest cab services, so that all of us kind of look different in our communities and or counties that we serve. Some only serve 1 county, some serve 7 counties, and we all look very different because it's all based on what that community really needs. And what our association does is we provide a platform for all of those mobility managers to be educated. We also provide a format for us to network and share ideas with something that works in my community, could be replicated in another community. So this association allows us to gather together and meet and connect. Part of what we do is advocacy, obviously, and getting the word out of what we do. And so all of our programs, you know, look at a community and we network with existing services, but then our challenge is to find ways to fill gaps. So, and we do it in a number of different ways, but some of the challenges that we face right now, one of them is to have adequate funding, because we want to serve everybody. Some of our programs are focused, you know, on older adults and people with disabilities. Some of our programs are strictly doing employment transportation, and there's different pots of money for each of those. So one of the issues is for the 8522 funding, the state side of that funding, which connects with our 5310 funding, has not had an increase in many years. The federal side apparently has, but the state side of that money has not been increased for many years. And that is one of the pots of monies that we use to make our programs work. So we're really advocating for the legislator to look at that. The other thing I'll say is that the other pot of money that many of us are starting to use is the Wisconsin Employment Transportation Program, the WTAP grant. And that is for employment-based rides. And that also, more and more of us are getting into that. There's a lot of rural communities that don't have any access, and these people still need to get to their jobs. And we're doing creative things in our communities to make that happen. But without funding, it's going to continue to be a challenge. The other thing that we're advocating on is just the fact that many of us, there's over 60 volunteer driver programs in this state. And we rely on these volunteers to make rides happen and fill gaps. And we've had some barriers related to that, as far as some of these insurance companies for the volunteers either say you can only drive if you have an additional cost associated with your insurance, much like a transportation network company, or we're not going to cover you. And so some areas of the state have seen that as being a real issue and an obstacle when you finally get a driver that's willing to be part of it, and then they get this obstacle with their insurance company. So we have to really take a look at that. Many of us transportation programs that have volunteers are challenged right now anyway because of the COVID issue and the fact that people aren't all vaccinated. So that, you know, that's another issue we're dealing with our drivers. The other thing that we really, because we work in communities and we are always looking at way to coordinate and be efficient, we really need the state to support coordination. And for us as local providers and for state agencies and the counties and everybody to coordinate and not have all these different silos of money and all these boundaries that we have to face with every day. If we could get rid of some of that and promote coordination, we could do so much more. So those are kind of the priorities that our association has.
And thank you for the sheets. And just as you're thinking about any questions for her, please know that these programs, these presentations are being recorded, and every legislative office and the governor's office will receive these packets later, and these 5 issue papers will go to all offices in the Capitol with an explanation. So they will be able to see these presentations there. All right, Carl, WCTC, you can talk about WCTC. And I introduce Carl, who is the relatively new Vice President of Green Cab, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure. Thanks, Gary. And I know other people did it already, but I want to make sure I thank Senator Piotrowski and Representative Considine for taking time out of, for hosting us and taking time out of their day to be part of this call and to listen to our issues. My employer is actually Zerology Incorporated, and our #1 project is Green Cab in Madison, and now we just a month ago started Green Cab in Janesville. Zerology is dedicated to introducing or expanding the use of electric vehicles and zero emissions vehicles throughout Wisconsin. So Green Cab in both Madison and in Janesville, we're using nothing but 100% electric vehicles, and that's pretty exciting. And it's a model that I hope expands very quickly. WCTC, Wisconsin Coordinated Transportation Cooperative, is a voluntary membership of providers, passengers, and supporters of the passenger transportation industries of Wisconsin. These include taxi cabs, specialized medical vehicles, county van programs, volunteer drivers programs, limousines and ambulances, and I'm sure I'm missing someone. We are meant to be an organization for all the different passenger transportation operations in Wisconsin to have a voice. We exist to give a voice to our shared concerns. This year, this COVID year, we worked especially hard on COVID-19 issues. We hosted with the DOT a forum where industry leaders could share best practices, where the state administrators of our programs could become more aware of COVID-19 related issues facing our industries. And we know that in 2021, it's not over. And so we'll continue to play that role and work with the industry on COVID-19 issues. That'll be a big part of our 2021. We have other issues we're aware of in 2021. And I just want to, I know many of these were mentioned by one of my colleagues just now, but I'll go through them quickly. Jim mentioned the issue of nursing homes. We partner, many of our transportation providers love to provide service to nursing homes, but they're struggling. They are not in the statewide NEMT broker program. They are limited in what they're easily able to pay a transportation provider. The limit is, if they want to get reimbursed by Wisconsin Medicaid, they have to only pay Medicaid approved transportation rates, which, as Jim said, haven't been increased since 1992. It's a terrible rate. So a transportation provider either has to accept that rate or simply refuse to serve that nursing home and move on to something else. The only other option the nursing home would have would be to forego asking for reimbursement and just simply pay for transportation out of their own pockets. But of course, nursing homes are not in a position to do that very often. So we really hope that this can be addressed in the budget, that nursing homes can get some support so they can better provide the transportation needs of their residents. We have great concern, all of us in the industry are greatly concerned about the cost to insure commercial vehicles. We're all a little bit shy to say the numbers, but it's somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 per vehicle per year. $6,000 to $10,000 per vehicle per year is that's really the range I hear about and when I research it. Commercial vehicle insurance for passenger transportation is extremely expensive. Anything that can be done to reduce the cost would work to the industry's advantage and to the consumer's advantage. One huge driver of the cost is uninsured or underinsured motorists in Wisconsin, and we really support the state investigating ways they can develop a program to reduce the number of uninsured or underinsured motorists. Wisconsin in 2015, my third issue, Wisconsin in 2015 allowed transportation network companies to apply for statewide licensing. And in that legislation, they created an imbalance, a competitive advantage for transportation network companies that taxicabs and other providers cannot enjoy. So we really are eager to work with legislators to try to restore some balance in the big industry so that transportation network companies and taxicabs and others play on the same competitive playing field. The Tier C transit programs. Wisconsin Department of Transportation defines municipalities or communities that are between 2,500 and 50,000 in population as a Tier C community. They're all eligible to get some assistance from Wisconsin, matched with federal dollars for assistance for running a transit program. As the baby boom population has aged, the number of communities interested in developing these programs has expanded much more quickly than the pool of money that Tier C has to share. Tier C shares whatever amounts in the budget divided equally among these cities. And Tier C just needs more money because more municipalities, as Mark pointed out, as WATO pointed out, more municipalities are trying to develop these programs. The pool of money hasn't grown as the number of eligible communities has grown and tried to tap into the money. In addition to funding the operations of the programs, Wisconsin administers the federal dollars that capitalize the program, that buy vehicles and vans. It's really should be dear to all of our hearts that we use the purchasing power of the state to try to incentivize electric vehicle manufacturing and electrical vehicle sales in Wisconsin. It's an important program for our future. It's important for our industry to be part of that future. It's important to get charging stations and more equipment out on the road. And I hope that we can encourage and work with legislators to get the state vehicle procurement program to start making electric vehicle options widely available in their program. Finally, my last issue is the statewide NEMT broker and the whole concept of coordination. And I really was glad that Holly pointed out and spoke about this already. But in 2009, the state budget instructed Department of Health Services, which had been hiring cab companies individually and SMV companies individually, through the counties actually, it instructed Wisconsin Department of Health Services to instead create a statewide brokerage system. And they pulled out of the coordinated model at that moment. They stopped. The broker was expected to operate a call center, approve ride requests, book rides from whichever transportation company they preferred, and then track and report on the usage of the program. The program was up and running by 2011. The various problems have plagued the program. Various counties have requested unsuccessfully to be removed from the program. And state legislators at one point even carved out a big swath of counties and tried to exempt these counties from the program. That effort was successful in the chambers of legislature, but was vetoed by the governor. This year is an important year in coordination and in the NEMT broker in that the brokerage will change. There's a new vendor that will be announced by the Department of Health Services soon. So it is an opportunity for a fresh start. And WCTC wants to work with legislators and with the departments to try to help the new broker find a coordinated model for future brokerage activities in Wisconsin. With that, I throw it back to you, Gary. I think we got a couple minutes left before the scheduled ending time.
Absolutely, and thank you all. WCTC is what is called a table organization. So it is an organization of organizations for collective voices. We started a few years ago, and State Representative John Spiros from Marshfield, who is currently the Vice Chair of the Transportation Committee, came and spoke to us and has encouraged us to be a voice of private providers throughout the state. So it is a model. The more we put into that, the better we could do to coordinate on these issues. And I have to say that in talking with the DOT and with the governor's office, for our next segment, we'll go into very specific budget items, things that are going to come up. We're going to talk a little bit about the schedule of public meetings that will take place over the next few months. And we'll talk a little bit more of the policy and issues end of things. But right now, are there any questions or comments anybody on this section of our day wishes to bring up, to add to, or supplement?
Yeah, I had a question for Carl. It seemed like not that long ago when, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector, if people purchased electric vehicles here in Wisconsin, they were having to pay a little bit more of a tax for having electric vehicle or a hybrid. And I'm wondering if there's going to be more incentives as, with public and private transportation, as they make the switch to all electric or hybrid, that there'll be some kind of a tax incentive to give them breaks for converting over to, greener, environmentally friendly vehicles. I just didn't know what your perspective on that might be, Carl.
Thanks, Mark. And I don't have an official WCTC position on that. I don't have an official zerology, but I can tell you one thing we're excited to do is just kind of like, we're the largest taxi cab fleet operating nothing but electrics. I can tell you that the excess we're paying in registration fees, which is meant to pay a little bit in that we're not paying in gas tax, I get that. That little extra is not changing the economics of it. These vehicles cost a fair amount to capitalize, to purchase, but then they really run almost, very, very low maintenance cost, very, very low. We put tires on them and then we just run them forever. It's a good deal despite that increase in our registration fee. That being said, I suppose we'd like to see the registration fee reduced.